Right, we're Lamed Hey Amud Aleph, 35a. So we've gone through the shape of the tefillin, the color of the tefillin, the writing of the tefillin. Yeah, Lamed Hey Amud Aleph, 35a. And now we get to the strength and the boxes themselves and their quality. So we are Amar Rav Huna. The line starts with the word Diavida. Then it says Ki Amguza, and the fourth word is Amar Rav Huna. So Amar Rav Huna says, Tefillin, the tefillin, calls man, so long as Shepnei Tavla, the exterior image. I guess that's kind of a direct translation. Kayemes is still intact. Shadetz, it's kosher. What he's saying is, we talked about how the tefillin, especially the head tefillin, is made up of 4 compartments. And we talked about that when the tefillin have to be square, it's the 4 compartments compressed together, even though each individual compartment of the 4 aren't equal in size. So there's something about the tefillin being pe'er, tefillin being beautiful, and their exterior look. And thus, Lamed Hey Amud Aleph, 35a, we're towards the bottom. It's about 10 lines at the bottom, somewhere about there.
10 lines at the bottom? Yeah.
Roughly, just by guess. I didn't count. How many is it? 9 lines, almost.
Well, she actually said from Rav Huna.
Yeah. So,
Rav Huna have that.
so Rav Huna is saying that as long as the exterior of the 4 boxes as they're compressed look fine, and there's no perforation, there's no hole, even though in between the compartments where it's not visible there might be a hole, it still remains kosher. There's discussion about what this means. If it's completely ripped, you don't have any separation at all between the compartments, then, it seems like there has to be some separation, at least in the bottom of it, at the base of the separation between the compartments. But if there's a hole between them, it's still kosher. But further qualification, Rav Chisda says, Nifstiku Shtayim, first of all, only if 2 out of the 4 compartments are ripped. Right? The exterior can't be ripped, so you're only left with 6 more walls that could possibly be ripped. Right? You have 4 compartments, each has 2 walls. It's 8. Right? The outer 2 can't be ripped. The outer 2 of the 4 walls of your 8 walls of your 4 compartments can't be ripped. And then Rav Chisda further says that a maximum is 2. If you have more than 2 of those 6 remaining walls, interior walls that are ripped, if it's 3, sholish, psolis, it's invalid. And this is indeed the halacha. It's a maximum of 2 walls that can be ripped. And Amar Rava further qualifies. Hadamris, that which Rav Chisda just told us, Shtayim Ksheres, that 2 is the maximum for the amount of walls that can be ripped. Any more than that, then it's invalid. Lai Amar is not said, Ella zeh shelo keneged zeh. You're talking about 2 of the walls that are not one opposite each other. So, right, you have 6 interior walls, but each of them touches another one, touches their neighbor. So it's 3 sections, right? 3 separations, each which have 2 walls. So if the 2 holes that you're permitted to have on 2 walls are near each other, or on 2 walls that are touching each other, then it's invalid. Further stated, the zeh keneged zeh. And when we say that 2 walls next to each other that have a hole, and that is invalid, Nami loy amron is only said b'chadata with a new pair of tefillin. A new pair of tefillin we have to be more strict with. There's a number of different reasons offered as to why that is. Rashi says, because if it's a new pair of tefillin and you have two holes opposite right of each other, that means to begin with it was a bad pair of tefillin. I shouldn't say bad pair of tefillin. It's not nice wording. Not quality leather. Not quality leather. It means to begin with an makulkul. Means to begin with the leather was
Defective.
was defective. That's the right word. Defective leather to begin with. If right at the beginning there's two holes opposite each other. Now batita, but an old tefillin, less than ba, it's not a problem. Because it means it was a good pair of tefillin. Just over time it wore out and we're not going to hold you to it. So, in summary, from the simple reading of the Gemara, we're going to look at the halacha in a second. There's a bunch of different opinions. But from the simple reading of the Gemara, what comes out is like this. Maximum of two holes. And they have to be not near each other. If they are near each other, then if it's a brand new pair of tefillin, it's okay. Because it means, if it's brand new pair of tefillin, it's not okay, because the leather is defective. If it's old, then it's good leather, it just wore out. There are others that have this Gemara in the reverse. That actually, well, first of all, there's other reasons for why a new pair of tefillin were more strict. Some say because it hasn't fully set yet, as we'll learn in a moment. And if it hasn't fully set, and you have two holes near each other, you can imagine that it's going to expand more, making the separation between the two compartments completely disintegrate or be completely open. And other reasons for why new ones are more strict. Can't remember, but there are others. And then there are some that have the reverse, actually, that were more strict on an old one, not a new one. They would turn this around. And the logic there is that if it's an old pair of tefillin, it's ruined. It's worn out, it's ruined. But if you built it this way, then this is the way it's meant to be built. In other words, they're not taking the logic that it's not set yet. They're saying this is how you're making it. And if you're making it like this, and it's meant to be durable in this fashion, then it's okay. But if it's wearing down to the point that there's a hole right next to two holes next to each other, it means it's already worn down. It's lost. It's past its prime, if you will, making the old more strict than the new. And as we'll see in the halacha, we actually combine all of these different opinions.
You must have different gears.
They have different gear sets. I think if you look at there's a Rif, there's a Rambam, there's a Rosh. There are a bunch of opinions here. Another set of opinions here is we've been talking about the separation between the compartments, and others say that in addition, it's also talking about rips that are in the stitching, making the halachas we just talked about here. Two rips versus three rips next to each other, not near each other, also apply to the stitching, as we'll learn in a moment. Actually, let's finish the Gemara before we get to the halacha. Let's define what new and old means. Amalei Abai Rav Yosef. Abai said to Rav Yosef, Hechi Damyan. How do we define Chadata, a new pair of tefillin? Hechi Damyan Tikta. How do we define an old pair of tefillin? Amalei. So Rav Yosef responded, Kol Hecha, at any time, Ki Milsi Be Pishalcha. If you're to pull against this leather, you're to pull against the leather of the tefillin, not the straps, the actual box. V'hader chalim, and then it reverts back to its original place. Atik, that's considered a new pair of tefillin, which means the tefillin's already set in its shape, and if when you pull it and stretch it, it'll automatically revert back to the original shape that you had set it in.
Because that's an old one.
That's considered old. It's already set in its place.
That's the old one?
That's an old one. It's already set, right? Which would explain why we're more. Meaning this version, the way we're describing it now, goes along with Rashi's version. That we're more strict with the new ones and less with the old ones because it's set and we're not worried about it ripping more, or we're not worried about it being faulty leather. It's good leather. I stretch it and it goes back to its original place. That's what it's supposed to do. But if I pull it and it doesn't revert back to its size, it stays where I pull it, and chadata, it's so new because it reshapes with the slightest pull. Now, by this definition, every single pair of tefillin we have is old. Nobody here, so far as I know, has a pair of tefillin that you can even stretch to begin with. And certainly if you somehow manage to, pull apart the four things, it would go back. Or tefillin. So even a brand new pair of tefillin today, I wonder if it gets the halacha of a new pair of tefillin. But in any event, because there are two versions of the Gemara, and we take the stringencies of both, we end up being strict with old tefillin and new tefillin because there's some authority that reverse it. So it almost makes no difference. At least in the practical halacha, because we're taking both opinions. Okay, v'inami, another definition as to what old and new means. Kol heiche, at any point, that when you take the tefillin holding it by the straps, Asya Basrei, the new pair of tefillin, the pair of tefillin comes with you. Chadata, it's new. In other words, the tefillin are not so set in that location on the strap that when you pull the strap, the actual box of tefillin comes with it, as opposed to staying where it is and the strap just pulling through. Right? So if it pulls with it, then chalat is a new pair of tefillin. It's again the same thing because the box of tefillin hasn't set yet, and therefore wherever you pull it, it goes with you. As opposed to an old pair of tefillin, which is set. V'idach, otherwise, atikta is considered old. There's another version of Rashi that says it's not actually talking about pulling the strap and the tefillin following with you, but the similar idea before, where you pull the straps and it reverts back to its original place, or it doesn't revert back to its original place. Two different versions in Rashi. Okay, let's see the Shulchan Aruch here. I was going to go through all the different opinions, but the Alter Rebbe kind of lays it out already anyway, with its conclusion, so we'll just do that. Okay, so let's look at the English. You can follow along. Section 33 of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch of Orach Chaim, laws relating to the repair of the compartments and to the straps. And there are six paragraphs. We're looking at the first two. The following rules apply if the internal dividers separating the compartments of the head tefillin are torn, even though from the outside the curb is intact. The cube. If the tefillin are new, they remain valid under any circumstances. This is our version of the Gemara, where when it comes to new ones, we're more lenient. Unless three compartments are torn in this manner, taking the two different qualifications the Gemara gave. Right? The first qualification was that if it's three or more, then it's invalid. So that's the first thing. Three or more off the table. Less than three, we're looking at two. Taking our version of the Gemara, new pair of tefillin, it's okay. Two holes, regardless of where they are, even if they're right near each other, it's still valid. This is our version of the Gemara. Yeah? No, hold on a second.
Yeah, we're more strict with the new one. The old one's okay.
This one will either remain under.
Because you weren't saying that the new ones, means it was a bad leather to begin
Are
with?
torn, even from the outside, they keep it intact. If it's one are new, they remain valid under any circumstances.
It's a different argument.
Oh, so this is the other version. This is the other version of this Gemara. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
We're gonna get to
said there was other opinions that reversed.
Yeah, it starts.
So this is a compromise, you're saying, right? The Shulchan Aruch was a compromise?
No. It's a combination. We're gonna get to all the opinion. Yeah, we're gonna get to all opinions. Sorry. If they are old, they are invalid even if only two compartments are torn. Taking the other version. Indeed, they are invalid even if there is a complete divider between them, but the divider on the right, outer side of the compartment, and the divider on the left, outer side of the compartment, are torn, meaning the outside of the cube has been compromised. That's also off the table. So two things I take it off the table already. 3 or more rips or outside rips. Inside, new ones remain valid. If, however, there is one intact compartment between them, i.e., both of its dividers are whole. The tefillin are valid even if they are old, provided all three compartments, i.e., the other three dividers, are not torn. So, if you have
Is the internal dividers or external dividers?
Sorry? Only internal. External, that invalidates it, right? So now, if they are old, so if they're old, then they don't get this leniency. It's invalid, even if it's only 2 rips.
So this is a strict view here.
Sorry?
This is a strict view.
Being strict on the old ones.
Even
Yes.
if they're not together.
Well, then we're talking about the external ones.
Oh, the external.
Right.
Okay.
Even if there's only 2 rips, just
because even if there's an intact compartment between them.
right, but you're talking about the outer ones. Even if you have a complete divider between them, the
way I'm reading this is if the rib is not contiguous, then it's okay. It's not invalid.
If they're what?
If
they're not facing each other.
It's contiguous. I mean,
they're not adjacent.
They have to be separated. They can't be 2 rips together. It can't be like rip, then okay. It could be
Yeah.
ripped, then a good wall, then rip again. That's okay.
That's what we had.
Right, but
It can be
even
contiguous.
and even
So
so,
it's-
it's
if there is one intact compartment between them,
and then even so, it's still
they're
invalid.
valid.
Even
They
so,
are
it's valid.
Yeah, they're valid. Even if it's old, it's valid. If the other 3 compartments are not
But even so, it's invalid.
valid, no, valid. Even
Yeah.
if there was one
Yeah, the
intact
old
compartment
ones.
between them, both of its dividers are the tefillin are valid, even if they're old, provided all the other 3 compartments are not torn. So they can't be.
Oh
the
yeah,
ribs-
yeah, okay.
the
I'm
ribs
skipping
cannot be
this thing.
contiguous.
Yes, right. So there are 2 issues here. So let's do this. So there are 2 issues here. The one issue is whether it's on the outside. One issue, and the other one is, like you said, if they're next to each other. Okay. Some authorities take the opposite view, maintaining that new tefillin are inferior to old ones. That's the way we have it from Rashi, and should be judged more stringently, for the fact that they were torn to this degree in a short time indicates that the leather used to make them was certainly flawed from the outset. This is what Rashi told us. One should be mindful of the more stringent elements of both of these views.
That's like the chachila. You're with second quality.
To begin with, you have tefillin that are no good.
Quality still.
Right. So if we're going to take the conclusion where we take both opinions, then that means the only time they are valid, new or old makes no difference. Right? Outer holes, always invalid. 3 holes, always invalid. The only time they are valid is if it's 2 holes that are not
Contiguous. Yeah.
contiguous to each other. Because we're combining both opinions. Clear? Mm-hmm. Okay, the next halacha does a similar thing, comparing it to stitches, and then a kind of solution. Have a good day. Okay, there is an authority who holds that the same rule applies to the stitches. If 2 stitches are vertically opposite each other, right? You have 2 stitches that are opposite each other, not meaning to say not horizontal as on either side of the box, but on the same side next to each other. Opposite each other could mean here or here. If this is the box that's filling, one here, one here. Don't think that. Next to each other as in both on one side. So 2 stitches right near each other. Right? When on your tefillin, you have right. We mentioned before Pesach that you have to have the stitching also has to be fully square. So on one of the sides, vertically, there's 2 stitches near each other that are ripped. Or 3 stitches, even when they are not vertically opposite each other, are severed, the tefillin are invalid. So, same thing. If you have 3 torn stitches, doesn't matter where they are, invalid. Two torn stitches are only invalid when they're next to each other. Just like...
The 3 anywhere, 2 if they're next to each other.
Same thing with the holes in the boxes. 3 anywhere, or 2 next to each other. So stitches, 3 anywhere, 2 next to each other. When does this apply? With regard to old tefillin. Where old tefillin, we are more strict, because they're getting ruined. With regard to new ones, because this is the way they're made, this is okay, at least in that understanding, as long as the leather at the base of the compartment is intact, they are valid, even though the stitching is ripped. What's the definition? Sorry?
That's interesting because you would think that they would argue that it was flawed, that the stitching was not.
That's one argument. One that was similar.
Next paragraph.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of competing views here.
So now he's going to define what old and new means. Tefillin are classified as new if they are strong enough not to tear, even if one holds on to part of the leather whose stitching was torn, and suspends the tefillin from that part. This is not exactly the way Rashi had it. The way Rashi had it, old meant that if you, new meant that if you pulled on the leather, it would stay where it is and not revert back to its original size. Rabbi here is taking a different definition based on other interpreters, that if you have a ripped piece of leather, there's a part of its tefillin that's ripped, you hold on to it, does the rest rip off or not? Right, especially here when we're talking about stitchings. Or perhaps he's only talking about with the stitchings issue, not with the previous issue, because he doesn't define what old and new means in the previous paragraph, and perhaps he doesn't do that because we're strict according to both opinions anyway. But here, he does define what new and old means, and he defines it by you hold on to a tear, and whether or not it's strong enough to not to tear. So if it's strong enough, it's new. If the leather of the tefillin cannot withstand this test, but tears, such tefillin are considered old, and therefore we're more strict because it's not strong enough to withstand the ripped stitchings, essentially. Okay, according to the view that new tefillin are inferior to old ones, with regard to torn compartments, from the previous commentary, they are similarly inferior with regard to severed stitches. Hence, so in other words, both disputes apply in both cases. So you have a dispute as to which one's worse, old or new. You have a discussion as to the fact that this halacha might apply not just to the boxes but to the stitches. So the dispute you had in the old and new with respect to the boxes also apply to the stitches. Hence, is it advisable to be mindful of this view in questions of severed stitches as well, and to rule with equal stringency according to new tefillin as concerns with old. And so again, new and old off the table, if we're going to take this stringency. And 3 ripped stitches invalid, 2 ripped stitches near each other
Invalid.
also invalid, because we make a difference if they're new or old. If it's two rips that are not near each other, then we're okay. This applies even if 2 stitches are vertically opposite each other are severed, despite the fact that there are authorities who rule on this with complete leniency regarding whether the tefillin are new or old, regardless of whether the tefillin are new or old, because some don't apply this whole thing to begin with on this. Right? The whole idea of applying the discussion of our Gemara onto stitches is only going to one opinion, which means, first of all, you have some people who don't apply the whole discussion onto the stitches. And even if you do apply it onto the stitches, maybe he's talking about new, maybe he's talking about old. So you have double reason to be lenient here. Nonetheless, we're still applying this stringency. Following, in the first case, you only have one question. You only have one leg to stand on to be lenient. Maybe he's talking about old. Maybe he's talking about new. But if here you have a second thing, first of all, who says talking about stitches to begin with? Who said the issues even talking about stitches? But nonetheless, we take the stringent view. But if there are 3 severed stitches severed, even if they are not vertically opposite each other, all authority rules still are invalid. So, even those that say that the whole discussion about 2 old, new, next to each other, not near each other, doesn't apply to stitches, right? But they'll still agree that once you hit the threshold of 3 ripped stitches, it's invalid. So even though they might be lenient on the issue of 2 stitches near each other, because they say that the Gemara's discussion only applies to boxes, not to stitches, but once you hit 3 ripped stitches, now you've already ruined your tefillin. It's invalid according to everybody. We're following a little bit? There's a lot of opinions here. Two crossover discussions. in very brief. Our Gemara gives 2 qualifications to the issues of rips. Number 1, 3 or more is out. Number 2, 2 next to each other are no good. Now there are 2 discussions. When we say 2 next to each other are no good, is that talking about old or new? Dispute number 1. And number 2, when we say 2 rips next to each other are no good, is that talking about stitches or not stitches? Now these things overlap. Because even if you're talking about stitches, there are those that would say that it's only new, and some would say it's only old. So now, when it comes to a new pair, 2 ripped stitches on a new pair, you have double reason to say lenient. Number 1, because some people say it only talks about old ones that is a problem. Number 1. Number 2, some say it doesn't apply to stitches at all. But nonetheless, we're strict. Yet, even if you're not of the view that the discussion now, Gemara, and all these qualifications of 2 next to each other and all the rest of that does not apply to the ripped stitches, you will agree that once you hit 3 ripped stitches, it's no good. This further compounds the reason to be strict when it comes to the stitches. Because at least when you hit a certain threshold, everybody agrees that it's invalid. However, in a situation where it is impossible to find other valid tefillin, or to restitch these tefillin, one may rely on the more lenient views if 2 stitches vertically opposite each other are severed, regardless of whether they're not, they're new or old, because there are those who say that the whole discussion doesn't apply to ripped stitches at all. Following? So if you're on vacation and you notice 2 of the stitches of your tefillin are ripped, you can still wear them. No matter if they're new or old, even though ours are qualified by old. Because there are those that say that the whole discussion doesn't apply to ripped stitches at all, it only applies to ripped compartments. So that one's observance of the mitzvah of tefillin are not to be suspended. Sorry?
As long as it's less than 3. Then
As long as it's less than
you can
3.
use that argument.
So then you can rely, that's right. So even though we end up being strict according to all opinions, it's still good to know when we're required to be strict and when it's accepted added chumrah. Why is it important to know that? So you have no other choice. You can forego the chumrah, but at least keep your mitzvah of wearing your tefillin.
It talks about impossible to find. So I mean,
That's right. That's why I said vacation. Because if you're here in Montreal, I'm happy to lend you my pair of tefillin.
synagogue might have a prayer and all that.
You have plenty of places to get your pair of tefillin. All right, have a wonderful day, everybody. I just wanted to mention at the beginning of this year, we should dedicate this year today for the refuah shlema of Yisrael ben Chana Priva, Noya bas Edan, Almog Yosef ben Ruti, were the people injured in Poway on Pesach. Hashem should give them refuah shlema and the whole community a comforting.
Amen.
Is it